Hello, Internet. It is I, Malik Aaron, and welcome back to Box Office Predictions. Today, we're going to be talking about A Quiet Place Day 1. So, as usual, we're going to be going over the pros and cons. So, let's get to it. Pros. So, this is the third Quiet Place movie. This series started all the way back in 2018 with this movie right here. It was directed by one John Krasinski. Yep, Jim from The Office. He decided he was gonna make a horror movie, and I imagine people were pretty confused by that. I thought it kind of felt like out of left field. But granted, Jordan Peele making a horror movie felt out of left field. Then he made Get Out, and everyone loved it. So people weren't sure what to expect, but people were probably interested. I remember the first trailer for this movie hit. It was attached to Star Wars: The Last Jedi. Saw that trailer, and I was like, "Damn, this looks really good." I thought like the premise like really intrigued me. The whole, you can't make sound because if you make sound, you die. Thanks to these like aliens um coming to Earth and killing everybody. So if you make a sound, you're fucked. You are fucked. So that's like, okay, this is a cool premise, leads to a lot of tension, a lot of, just intense scenes. I'm like, okay, cool. And then it came out, and a lot of people expected it to be like a mid level hit, but it became a big old hit, opened with 50 million, which is a lot for an original horror movie. Had really good legs, too, thanks to having a really strong reception. It made over 300 million on a budget of 17 million. That's incredible. And originally this wasn't meant to be a franchise, but Paramount was like, "Look, John, can you make more, please? We might have something here." And he was like, "Okay." And then we have A Quiet Place Day 2, not Day 2, God, Part 2, which was supposed to come out in 2020, March 20th, as it says here. And man, I was so hyped for this. I was ready. I was ready to go. I was like, hell yeah, I'm gonna watch this Thursday night. It's gonna be lit. And then fucking COVID came in, destroyed my plans, and it pushed this movie back again, again, again. I was pissed off. um, so yeah, it didn't come out in 2020. It came out in May of 2021. Well, actually, it was supposed to come out, I think, in September of 2021, but then they made a decision to move it all the way up to like May of 2021. I was like, oh hell yeah, let's go. I don't gotta wait so long. It came out. It was one of the first big movies to really come out since theaters reopened. Like the box office was still in a pretty dark place, but it was slowly, getting its act together. And this was, I guess, one of the movies that was like a big test for the box office to see if tentpole movies can still be a thing. And this proved tentpole movies can very much still be a thing because it opened like 47 million. It made 160 million domestically, almost 300 million worldwide. Sure, that's worse than the first movie, but considering what this movie had to deal with, the marketplace it was in, with a lot going on, movies being on streaming and theatrical at the same time, it's a great result considering the circumstances. Under normal circumstances, this would have made way more money, but for when it came out, this is more than acceptable. And so you think that'd be it? Nope. They're like, let's make another one. Except John Krasinski didn't make A Quiet Place Day 1 because he was busy making If. It's made by a different person. Michael Sarnowski. I hope I'm saying his name right. And this is a prequel, so it's not connected to like the family you see in the first two Quiet Place movies, with like Emily Blunt, John Krasinski, and their kids. No, not that. This is a different group of characters. This takes place like when this whole invasion started, and everything went to shit real quick. So yeah, the Quiet Place movies very successful. They're well liked. well made, great, really good, solid reputations. So obviously that brand name recognition is a pro. Duh. So that's pro number one. Pro number two, uh, even though the horror genre has been very, very, very quiet this year with nothing going on, a lot of horror movies just not doing well. This is the first that I knew people would watch. It was the first horror movie this year where people were just like, okay, that one, that I need to see. It's kind of like how like Dune Part Two, people looked at that as like the savior of cinema when it was coming out because the box office was so damn awful those first 2 months. It's kind of a similar thing with Quiet Place Day One with like the horror genre because we haven't had like a big horror movie, yeah, anything like that since like Five Nights at Freddy's, and that was last October. So horror needed something, and this is certainly something. So this being like the first horror event of the year, I'm gonna label that as a pro. Despite the horror genre's weakness, I knew that streak was gonna be broken with this. So yeah, this being the first horror event of the year, that's a pro. Another pro is that reviews for this movie are very good. Has an 84%, which is a very solid result. Its audience scores is 73%, which is not very solid. I was really worried about that, but then I saw its cinema score and it's like a B plus. So there's kind of a weird thing going on. You think like the cinema score would be like a C or something, judging by that audience score, but no, it's a B plus. If you look at, let me see if it should show the other Quiet Place movies. Quiet Place. It's the same score as the first movie, but the second movie got like an A minus, so it's about the same range. And I do want to know like what is the vibe? What is going on with this score? I need to know. Uh, I see 4 star, 3 stars, 1.5 star. Yeah. So yeah, got that was the first one, 4 stars. Great blend of suspense, jump scares, and character development. Lupita Nyong'o commanded the screen and pulled you close. A touching and exciting installment to a worthy franchise. Uh, okay. I've seen like a one where saying like the trailers were misleading. I enjoyed the film, but I can see why others are rating it lower. It's a very small story. It doesn't expand on any of the franchise lore, nor does it show you what you don't already know. If you can get over that and appreciate the performances, you'll enjoy. So yeah, I guess people were kind of hoping for a lot more with this. Kind of hoping like ask for the answer like some questions about like what about the aliens? How did and the monsters? How did they get to Earth or something? Or like maybe there'd be like connection to even though we already saw what happened, like how John Krasinski and Emily Blunt, like their family, like how they reacted when the aliens first arrived in like their town in part two. But I guess people want this to be a little bigger, but it wasn't. It was a very small, contained story. Like this could literally you could watch this as like a standalone flick. You do not need to watch the first two Quiet Place movies to get this thing. Which I say is a good thing that you don't have to rely on other movies to watch this. You don't have to do homework because no one likes doing homework. So yeah, um, a lot of 5 stars, some threes, 2 5s. Yeah, yeah, So the audience score is a little weird. but the cinema score is a B plus, and I say that that's better than average for like the horror genre. So I'd say reaction is mid-ish, but it's not fatal. Okay, it's not as severe as like Horizon American Saga. For one thing, Quiet Place Day One is a whole hell of a lot shorter than Horizon. So I guess the short one, it's a little more forgivable, like to deal with like that shorter runtime than Horizon. So word of critic scores is good. Word of mouth is not as good. So it's kind of it's, it's like a minor pro. It's a mix of a pro and a con. I'm gonna put it in middle ground. Word of mouth being like a middle ground thing. Okay. Telling some other pros. This is easily the biggest movie of this weekend. It's the only movie people really care about this weekend, besides watching Inside Out 2 for probably the third time. And there won't be like any direct comp. Well, I guess there's Maxine, but I'm not expecting that to be like a big hit. The next like big horror movie after that is God, I don't even know. um, that I can think of off the top of my head. I know there's Alien Romulus, but that's not till like mid August. So when it comes to like serious competition, direct competition, there really isn't much of anything. Even in terms of like just general competition, like Despicable Me 4, that's not gonna affect this very much. They share different audiences. They have different audiences. So yeah, review, direct competition is like I say it's more or less a non-factor. So that's a pro. My bad. That's a pro. Another pro is that it's God, I cannot talk. Preview numbers were really good, really really solid. Actually better than the first two movies, believe it or not. I mean, let's look at the first Quiet Place. That had a preview number of 4.3 million. Quiet Place Part 2 had a preview number of 4.8 million. So this is a big jump from the first two movies. And this is a prequel, by the way. That's not how this usually works. Um, so, yeah, I mean, this is obviously the biggest for any horror movie this year. I think this is bigger than some horror movies I've like opened with this year. Actually, let's compare like this day one to the other horror movie that came out earlier this month. The Watchers. Let's compare it to that. Just out of curiosity. The Watchers. Yeah, only opened with like 7 million. So A Quiet Place Day One's previews, not even opening day, its previews were just slightly lower than what The Watchers made in 3 days. So that should tell you a lot about how good A Quiet Place Day One is doing and how poor The Watchers did. Um, so yeah, these preview numbers are fantastic. So I'm gonna label that as a pro, definitely. I guess another pro is the marketing's been pretty darn good. People know this movie exists. People know it's coming out. Overall, like in terms of like all the summer movies that were coming out, I imagine this was probably high on a lot of people's list. It was definitely high on my list of movies to watch this summer. Because again, the reputation of the first two movies. So yeah, marketing I'd say has been good, even though some would argue it's been a little misleading. But I don't think it's like too misleading. It's not like it's a different genre or anything. It's not like it portrays like, oh, like this character is going to be so important in a movie, and then they're just in there for like what, two scenes. It's not like say with Argyle where they showed off a lot of Henry Cavill and you learn he's barely in the movie at all. It's not like that. That is like the worst type of misleading. Um, but yeah, marketing I say has been strong, so that's a pro. Um, Cons. I can't think of too many cons, really. Maybe that reaction to the movie that might have a negative effect later on, but right now it doesn't seem to be having much of an effect on it. Because that's somewhat negative effect. Um, I can't think of any other cons, like, really at all. I really can't. I'm struggling. No, no, I can't really think of anything else. So, okay, so opening weekend, looking at the last two Quiet Place movies, or the first two, 50 million, 47 million. Quiet Place Day 1, from what I'm seeing right now with its numbers, is expected to hit right in between the two with about 48.5 million. Um, I feel like it could reach 50. If it could reach 50, that would be really swell, but 48, that'd be very solid. Again, for a prequel. I mean, look how Furiosa did last month. That did awful for a prequel. But obviously, like this, Furiosa, very different movies, very different circumstances. Um, Furiosa had to deal with like a 9 year gap between, Mad Max Fury Road and that. This, for a Quiet Place Day 1, the gap was like 3 years. So obviously gave it an advantage. And not to mention the franchise was much bigger. Is a lot bigger and more successful, more accessible than Mad Max ever was. That's just a fact. So yeah, 48 million. I'm gonna go with that. 48, 45 to 50 million. Let's go with that for opening weekend. And its total, its legs should be maybe okay. I'm not too sure. I'm gonna say 140 to 130 to 150 to be safe. So that's what I'm gonna go, 130 to 150. And that's it. That's it for the weekend. We are done. Next week we got a special midweek prediction video. I don't do those too often. That's only because next week is 4th of July. And obviously, depending on what day 4th of July falls on, you got some movies opening midweek. And we only got really one. I guess there's Sound of Hope, but I'm not super sure about that one. I don't know if I don't have much information on that one. I feel like we might have to. I don't know if I'm gonna have to pull a Sound of Freedom and I just don't talk about it, depending on like what I know, what I don't know about it. I don't know. We'll see. I will talk about Despicable Me 4. That will happen Wednesday. That is guaranteed to happen. And then Friday, I'm doing Maxine. I know that. Sound of Hope, I'm not super sure. We'll see. Maybe. But Despicable Me 4 and Maxine, those are guaranteed. So stay tuned for those next week. But yeah, so that's it. That's all. Make sure to subscribe, like this video, leave a comment, turn notifications, share the whole drill. You want to check out more videos like this? I got playlists on the homepage. All previous prediction videos I made this year, the past few years. You want to watch any of them? Go right ahead. There's also the canceled series where I went over all the movies that were supposed to come out but didn't for various reasons. Quiet Place Day 1, I talked about it, I believe, like a few times. I will check to be sure. Okay, the first time. I'm hoping it was the first time. Okay. First time was episode 103. It didn't have a title yet, so I just called it Untitled Quiet Place Movie. I talked about it alongside Bros, Transformers 2024 movie, which is now Transformers 1, and TMNT The Next Chapter, which became Mutant Mayhem. I talked about it alongside those. Then the next time I talked about it, oh wait. Oops. That was the wrong one. I clicked on the one with like A Quiet Place 3 for 2025. Boy, that didn't age well. um, the next one really was episode 141, where I talked about it alongside If. How fitting is that? Considering both Quiet Place and If, they share the same guy, and the Tiger's Apprentice, which didn't even get a theatrical release. So, yeah. I talked about those three for episode 141, and then the last time I talked about it was episode 211. Talked about it alongside Mission Possible 8, If, and the new SpongeBob movie that I forgot the title of. I don't really care to remember the title, but it's coming out like next year. So yeah, I talked about it in those episodes. So if you want to watch any of those canceled episodes, any other ones I made on the channel, I'm done with the canceled series in the rearview mirror. I made 250 episodes. So if you want to watch any of those episodes from beginning to end, you want to binge them all, go right ahead. There's also box office recaps where I go over the box office results for any particular month. June recap, that will be in early July between the 5th and the 12th. So stay tuned for that. But if you want to watch any of the past recap videos I made on the channel, you can go right ahead. And yeah, that's it. That's all. I am out. Goodbye.